Hey guys, I'm Derek Butler and welcome back to We the People. I am super excited about today's interview as I've had the honor to sit down with Illinois State Representative Juliana Stratton. She currently serves as Illinois' 5th District Representative. She recently was tapped by J.B. Pritzker, who's running for Illinois Governor, to be his running mate as the Lieutenant Governor. She has done amazing things here in the city of Chicago, in Springfield as a state representative, and I know that there is more to come. It was amazing to sit down with her and to just listen to some of her ideas and some of the things that she has done as state representative. I hope that you enjoy.
So I'm State Representative Juliana Stratton, and I am the representative of the 5th Representative District. I've been in the state legislatures. I was sworn in January of 2017, so it's just been almost 8 months. I have always worked in areas that have allowed me to be an advocate, a problem solver, and someone who can bring people together. And I think that's the work that I've done throughout my career, not just professionally, but also some of the things that I've done in the community from a community service standpoint. So, you know, I've been in public service. I've always, even though I am an attorney, I have worked in public service throughout most of my career. I started with a small firm initially and then went to work with a number of governmental agencies because I started my own practice, my own mediation firm. So I was a mediator, an arbitrator, and an administrative law judge, primarily for government agencies. And so being in public service and being in government, I always recognized that our role was to figure out a way to best serve the public and to make sure that the public has what it needs from governmental agencies and that their taxpayer dollars are being used wisely. So I would say that being a state representative and coming into this role of running for office is really just an extension of that work, and it's a way to continue to have an impact, continue to do problem solving, continuing to negotiate and bring people together, and continuing to be an advocate for those that I believe really need their voices heard in that political realm. So I just really see this as a way of extending that work and having a broader reach and a broader impact from the work that I've always been doing. The idea that I am actually a part of the process to help file bills and to vote on bills and to pass legislation and create laws for our state it's an extreme privilege. And so I love that process of negotiating, identifying issues in the community, thinking about what could be better for our state, and then actually just writing a bill and working that bill, talking to my fellow legislators on both sides of the aisle. There's also the side of working within the district where I get to talk to a lot of residents. I enjoy going door to door. Many people are still shocked that their state representative will come to their door and just ask them for their ideas, talk with them about issues that are important to them, and I just really enjoy it. I enjoy hearing from the people that I represent so that I can represent their interest when I go to Springfield. I often think about issues from the standpoint that there's been a lot of harm that has been done by some of the policies that have developed over time, and that being in the state legislature is an opportunity to try to help repair some of the harm, or at least pass some legislation that's going to do good and not cause harm. So a couple of things some bills that I've been able to pass this first session of mine have been, and a few that I'm really proud of, by the way, include House Bill 3904, which establishes the first ever Women's Correctional Services Act and ensures that as we think about women who are incarcerated in the state of Illinois, that the policies and protocols and programming in our Illinois Department of Corrections are both gender responsive as well as trauma informed. So that was really important to me. Another one is House Bill 3903, which bans school-based booking stations. A lot of people don't know that there were schools that have booking stations in them where students can be processed for arrest. And if the governor signs this bill, it's passed the House and the Senate. If the governor signs it, those booking stations will be banned in the state of Illinois. I think so we have separate branches of government, right? I'm in the legislative branch and he's in the executive branch. And so there's different roles. And so our job in the legislative branch is to actually work on these bills that then go to him for signature. I think one of the most significant things that we went through during this session, of course, was the ability to pass a budget, which we have not had in Illinois in 2.5 years. And this is something that has never happened in the state of Illinois. We were the only state that has gone this long without a budget. And clearly, when we look at all the different factors of whether we had a Democratic governor or a Republican governor, a Democratic-led legislature versus a Republican-led legislature, whatever that combination was, we have always been able to pass a budget in Illinois. The only difference this time around was that we had this new governor who had what he called his turnaround agenda, that he said that in many ways, unless certain these items on his agenda were moving forward, that he was not willing to really negotiate a budget. And that's really what happened. And what it boiled down to in our special session, when we took up the fact that he vetoed the budget, which means that he vetoed funding for higher education, he vetoed MAP grants, he vetoed child care for low-income families, he vetoed services for elderly residents. All of those things that were vetoed by the fact that he said, I'm vetoing this budget because I didn't get what I want. I think for many of us, and certainly for some of my Republican colleagues who recognized we can't do this anymore. Our state was on the verge of going into junk bond status. It was a situation that was really dire. Social service agencies were closing their doors, laying off people. Colleges and universities were having a hard time recruiting students from the state. I mean, there was great devastation that has already happened and was happening and would have really gotten worse had we not gotten a budget passed. And enough of us realized that, and we did so. So what his motivation is, I don't want to speak for him, but I think it says a lot. He's saying a lot by the fact that he was willing to veto a budget that was balanced and would have addressed the needs of our state. I talked earlier about just the idea of hearing the stories of the people that I represent, but not just the people that I represent. There are advocates and organizers and so many others that come to Springfield to say, this is something that's really important to me. This is an issue that I want you to take a look at, that I want you to do something about. And, just about any time I talk about my time in Springfield, I talk about my Women's Correctional Services bill, that House Bill 3904. And I talk about a woman named Maria. And I told her that day when she said these words, I asked her permission to be able to repeat these words because they had such a profound impact on me. And Maria said this. She said, I was in prison, and then I went to prison, and then I was released back to prison. And those words not only resonated with me, but they have been a source of motivation in the work that I do. That there is no excuse for people to be living in conditions in the communities around this state that are so comparable to prison. And I know that, however you want to look at it, but that's how she felt. That when she actually went and was incarcerated in the Department of Corrections, it wasn't that much of a difference. And I don't think she meant that there were bars. I don't think she meant that there were cells or anything like that. But I think what she was alluding to is that some of the conditions in her community that she lived in before being in prison, incarcerated, and that she came back to, were the kinds of conditions that keep people from moving forward. They're the kinds of conditions that do not allow for opportunity, don't allow for creativity, don't allow for dreaming or feeling that you have just as much of a chance as anybody else to pursue your dreams. And we have to change that. We have to change not just reform to the extent that we can the criminal justice system, but we need to invest in our communities to make sure that people have what they need so that that they can stay out of the system in the first place, and so that any that do end up in the system come out to a place that can help support them and provide them with the kinds of opportunities that will keep them out of the system. So I'm very motivated by her words that cause me to think about not just the justice system, but what our communities are like, and how they can have just as negative an impact on someone as the system itself if we don't properly invest in those communities. So when I think of millennials, and the pathway to public service or an elected position, I think we are seeing example after example right now of how millennials are really leading the way in that effort. And, I was talking to a group of young people recently, and I said, recognize that being an elected official, and I certainly encourage as many as possible to think about that path. We need your voices in these various levels of government, whether it's at the local level, on the city level, at the state level, or even the federal level. We need your voices. Having said that, it's not just in the realm of being an elected official. We need millennials and the energy that you bring, the ideas that you bring as campaign managers, as fundraisers, as policy advisors. We need to recognize that the only way to effectuate change is not limited to being an elected official, that every time you're out organizing around an issue, that you're advocating for an issue, when you're speaking up and talking about things, when you pick up the phone and say to your representatives, hey, this is something you need to be thinking about differently. Those are all examples of being engaged in the political process. So yes, running for office, and I hope you do, but it doesn't have to just be that. There's so many ways that you can be engaged, and I think the key is to not just sort of sit and feel like somebody else should do it, even including your elected officials. It's not just they should go off to Springfield, they should go to DC, they should go wherever to the city council meetings, and it's up to them and their own ideas. It is about you taking your ideas and saying, this is what I want to see happen. So, and I think on our side as elected officials, we have to continue to open up the door to hear those voices and not dismiss the voices, not just of millennials, but people young, teens and college students and children who have things that they're really passionate about and things that they want to see happen. We have to make sure that we keep the doors and the lines of communication open for all generations to recognize that we're going to go farther when we do it together. It's not just about, I'm elected and therefore I have the voice. No, if I'm the representative, it means I need to hear from you so I know what type of representation to provide.
Juliana is amazing. Not only was I excited to be able to sit down with her, but a couple days after that interview, it was announced that she would be J.B. Pritzker's running mate. And I was ecstatic as if I was the one who got chosen to be the lieutenant governor. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure that you follow us on social media at Be Hopeful People on Facebook and Twitter. Visit our website at BeHopefulPeople.com and check us out on SoundCloud to hear the entire interview with Juliana. Thank you all so much for your support, and remember, be hopeful, people.